I had a one-night stand, and now my affair partner is pregnant. The moment I saw the text, my heart sank. It was a simple message, yet it carried the weight of my entire world. We need to talk. I'm pregnant. I stared at my phone, frozen in disbelief. How could this happen? One night, one reckless decision, and now my life was about to change forever. It all started a few months ago when I found myself at a party. I was in a bad place emotionally, feeling unfulfilled and lost in my relationship. A few too many drinks led to a moment of weakness, and I ended up in a hotel room with someone I barely knew. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, a release from the monotony of my life, but now it felt like a terrible mistake I couldn't undo. I knew I had to face the reality of the situation. The initial shock gave way to a surge of panic. I started replaying that night in my mind, the details flooding back, the laughter, the connection, the thrill of something new. But now it was tainted by the reality of potential consequences. I had to take responsibility, but what did that mean for me, for her, and for my current relationship? I texted her back, trying to keep my composure. "Can we meet to talk?" I suggested, heart racing. I needed to see her, to understand the situation more clearly. The waiting felt unbearable. A few moments later she replied with a time and place. My stomach churned as I prepared for our meeting. I felt like I was walking into a storm, unsure of what awaited me. When we met, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. She looked anxious, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. We sat down at a small cafe, and I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "So what happens now?" I asked, my voice shaky. She looked down, clearly grappling with her own emotions. "I just found out a few days ago. I didn't know how to tell you. I'm scared," she admitted. My heart ached at the sight of her vulnerability. We had both made a choice that night, but now we were faced with consequences that were far from easy to navigate. We discussed options, but there was no clear answer. She expressed that she was considering her choices, from raising the baby to possible adoption. Each option came with its own set of challenges and fears. I could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on both of us. "What do you want?" I asked her, trying to gauge her thoughts. "I'm not sure," she replied, tears in her eyes. "I never expected this. I don't even know if I'm ready to be a mother." I nodded, feeling the depth of her uncertainty. This wasn't just about me, it was about her life and her future too. As we talked, a whirlwind of emotions surged within me. Guilt, fear, confusion. How would I ever explain this to my partner? My heart sank at the thought. I had made a terrible mistake, and now it was threatening to unravel my entire life. The reality of my one-night stand was crashing down on me, and I felt utterly trapped. I considered my current relationship one I had taken for granted. My partner and I had built a life together, and now I was standing on the brink of losing it all. How could I look my partner in the eyes after this? Would they ever forgive me? The idea of coming clean filled me with dread, but I knew I couldn't hide this forever. Eventually we agreed that we needed time to think. We parted ways, each lost in our thoughts. I spent the next few days in turmoil. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I avoided my partner, struggling to find the right moment to bring up the situation. My heart raced every time I thought about it. The longer I waited, the heavier the burden felt. Finally, I could no longer bear the weight of my secret. I knew I had to tell my partner the truth, even if it shattered everything. We sat down in our living room, and I could see the love and trust in their eyes. It made my heart ache even more as I prepared to ruin it all. "Can we talk?" I started, my voice trembling. They nodded, sensing the seriousness of my tone. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. How the one night had happened. How I had betrayed their trust, and how now there was a pregnancy involved. I watched as shock washed over their face, replaced by disbelief and hurt. "I can't believe this," they said, their voice breaking. "How could you do this to us?" The pain in their eyes was palpable, and I felt a wave of guilt crash over me. I had shattered the trust we had built, and I could see that in their reaction. "I'm so sorry," I pleaded. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I was in a dark place, and I made a terrible mistake. I take full responsibility." My partner's silence was deafening, and I knew I had to let them process everything. As the days turned into a week, the silence hung heavily between us. My partner struggled to come to terms with the betrayal while I battled my guilt and fear. I was terrified of what the future held. Would my partner choose to stay and work through this, or would they walk away, leaving me to face the consequences alone? In the midst of this turmoil, I decided to support my affair partner through her pregnancy. I felt a sense of responsibility that I couldn't ignore. We agreed to keep communication open about what would happen next. She needed someone by her side during this difficult time, and I couldn't turn my back on her. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, trying to balance my responsibilities to both women in my life. I would meet with my affair partner to discuss doctor visits and any plans for the future. Each time we met, it was a reminder of my mistakes, and I fought against the rising anxiety. I was terrified of what the future held for all of us. After weeks of difficult conversations, my partner and I reached a breaking point. They finally expressed their feelings, and I listened as they poured out their heart. "I don't know if I can forgive you," they said, tears streaming down their face. "I love you, but this feels like a betrayal I can't recover from." I felt the sting of their words, knowing that I had put us in this situation. "I understand," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. But I also need to be there for her during this pregnancy. I want to make sure she knows that I'll take responsibility." We spent hours discussing our feelings, and though it hurt, I appreciated their honesty. It became clear that our relationship would never be the same, but there was still love between us. We decided to take a break to figure out our next steps, allowing each other space to process the emotions and decisions that lay ahead. As the months passed, I continued to support my affair partner. We went to doctor appointments together, and I found myself grappling with conflicting emotions. I was excited about the baby, yet devastated by the circumstances surrounding its conception. I often wondered how I would fit into the baby's life, especially with the guilt hanging over my head. Eventually, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in limbo, torn between two worlds. After countless discussions and deep reflection, I chose to focus on rebuilding my relationship with my partner. They were the one I loved, the one I wanted to build a life with. I couldn't let my one-night mistake dictate my future. I approached my partner again, ready to face the consequences of my actions. "I want to work on us," I said, my heart racing. "I know I messed up, and I don't expect everything to go back to normal overnight, but I believe we can find a way forward if we both commit to it." To my surprise, my partner looked at me with a mix of sadness and hope. "I want that too," they said softly. "But it's going to take time." I nodded, knowing that the road ahead would be rocky, but at least we were willing to walk it together. As we began to heal, I made a commitment to take responsibility for my actions. I continued to support my affair partner, but I established boundaries to protect my relationship. I couldn't erase the past, but I could work on building a future filled with honesty and respect. The journey was not easy, and there were many challenges ahead. But I felt a sense of relief in knowing that I had chosen the path of accountability. It was a long road, but I was determined to reclaim my life, one step at a time.